my name is Kennedy Winslow, and I'm an Ayesha Bulchandani Education Intern here at the Frick Collection. This talk is part of the Closer Look series, presented to you by Education at the Frick. Today, I have the pleasure of guiding you all through the English countryside via John Constable's remarkable painting, The White Horse. John Constable was born in 1776, just 1 month before America's 13 colonies declared independence from Britain. He grew up in Flatford, in England's Suffolk County, as the son of a mill owner. The White Horse was a landmark painting in Constable's career. Completed in 1819, it marked the first of his so-called six-footers, a series of appropriately named large-scale paintings, each around this size. The 6 works in the series all depict landscapes within a 4-mile stretch along the River Stour, near where the artist grew up and lived most of his life. Constable was so well known for representing this rural landscape that the area he most often depicted became colloquially known as Constable Country. This 6-footer depicts a spot on the Stour where the towpath used by horses to pull barges, known as lighters, switches over to the other side. To continue their path, the bargeman must ferry the horse, who is trained to step onto the barge, across the river. Their efforts seem to be carrying them, however slowly, into the view of a white building. Just as the barge, with its stark white tow horse, emerges from the thicket, so too does the structure, whose white walls draw the viewer's eye out of the forest and whose ruddy brown roof helps it stand out from the clouds that delineate the horizon. This is a real farmhouse, still standing to this day, named for its long-term tenant, Willy Lott. Next to it, partially obscured by a particularly verdant copse of trees, is Gibbon's Gate Farm. In this scene, Constable strives for realism, using dappled brushstrokes and layering shades of green and rusty brown to give depth to the foliage hiding Willy Lott's house and Gibbon's Gate Farm from the viewer. As the river's path leads out of the foliage shading it, we see a patch of the sky reflected on the water between the shadows of the trees. This contrast is enticing, as the bright blue and gray reflection narrows to a point as it draws closer to the viewer. Here, along the bottom of the painting, our eye is then led to Constable's signature in the ground and to the dilapidated fence posts, splintered and falling away into the river. A closer look in this corner is rewarded with tiny red flowers tucked behind the vertical fence post closest to the edge of the painting, which are not visible at a distance. Reviews from the painting's 1819 debut suggest that the viewer steps back from the work in order to fully enjoy it. But there are equally so many details that only become visible as one comes closer to the painting. If we follow the direction of the horizontal fence rails, our eye is led back across the river to a path. We can imagine it is well worn by years of cattle proceeding down it to wade into the water, like these cattle have. The trio is softly reflected in the waters of the Stour here, another detail not easily noticed when one abides by the suggestion to view this piece at a distance. Nevertheless, nothing in this landscape draws the eye quite like the White Horse. It stands out against the island behind it, called the Spong, where Constable has again employed green, brown, and flecks of white. This technique draws the viewer's eye, suggesting that the cloud-covered sun shines down on the island, flickering off the leaves and highlighting in stark white the side of the horse that is facing the viewer, along with the heavy red gear that weighs on its neck. The White Horse, the painting, that is, was affectionately named by John Fisher, its first owner and Constable's closest friend. Constable himself originally titled the work A Scene on the River Stour, though he was also recorded as referring to it as the farmyard. The filtered light focuses our attention on the horse, finally at rest in between bouts of towing the barge, serving as a reminder of all the labor associated with rural life, both human and animal. At its surface, it's a bit absurd. Constable has painted a moment in the process where the roles are reversed, with the men hard at work while the horse, its head hung low from the weight of its towing gear, enjoys a moment of respite. In this painting, the men and man-made elements are subsumed by the natural world. The men themselves hardly stand out from the trees from which they emerge. Their gear, the poles used to propel the barge and the anchor hauled atop it, are rendered in the same tones of warm, rusty brown that Constable uses to give depth to the Spong behind them. Past the Spong, a boat shelter on the opposite shore from the viewer, crafted with scavenged logs and a thatched roof, dissipates into the farmyard behind it, in no small part because of Constable's use of variegated shades of brown. The muddy climb up the bank blends seamlessly with where the roof of the shelter touches the ground, as if the land has come to reclaim the straw-like thatched material. The naturalization of mankind's impositions on this landscape are perhaps best explained by Constable's relationship to the scenes he painted on the Stour. His family owned and oversaw the Flatford and Dedham locks, which controlled water levels and allowed lighters to travel with more ease. With the death of his father, Constable inherited the land and the family business, but naturally rejected them. They went to his younger brother Abram instead. The economic depression that struck many English industries after the Napoleonic Wars struck the Constable's milling business as well, and correspondence between the brothers shows Abram insisting that John, quote, exert himself and earn some money now, end quote, for the good of the family's finances. One compelling idea is that the White Horse and the rest of the Six-Footers can be read as Constable's aesthetic stewardship of the land, though he painted this a ways away in his London studio. In the painting, the labor put into the land's maintenance is at every point overtaken by nature. The trees cloak the cottage and the barn. A white picket fence, signifying privacy and ownership of the land it encases, is only just visible through the thicket of greenery next to Willy Lott's house. The boat shelter is, visually, becoming one with nature, and the men themselves hardly stand out from their verdant surroundings. I wonder if, through this landscape, the artist is suggesting that it is completely natural that his family and the people who live and work around them should steward this land. He has, in his own artistic way, reclaimed the land ownership he once rejected. His use of the Six-Footers to do so managed to cement his legacy to this day. The term Constable country is therefore all the more fitting. Beyond the land his family owned, Constable's skies have long been a point of interest. His depictions of clouds offer a near-scientific study of the sky, contributing to the divine quality the artist was intent on representing in his simple rural landscapes. While they are celebrated renditions of the cumulus cloud formation, the fluffy weightlessness they bring to this otherwise muted painting uplifts the viewer. His cumulus streets display a realistic depth, and we can picture ourselves looking up at those clouds, watching them glide across the sky from our spot on the shore. We might even be able to make a meteorological prediction by considering the clouds darkening the sky over the cows. Clouds number among the many striking differences between John Constable and his contemporary, the landscape artist J.M.W. Turner, whose paintings are shown in the same gallery at Frick Madison. Turner's clouds in Cologne, the arrival of a packet boat, are close to cirrus clouds, long wave-like formations high in the sky. His sunset and application of light and color skips across these clouds as they transition from blue and gray in the distance, before washing warmth over the city on the shore closest to the viewer. The brilliance of the two Turner paintings on view represents these busy ports of call outside of England as public places of movement and sound, whereas Constable's faithful renditions of the English countryside are serene, private corners of the world, a love letter to the lands he grew up in. Constable's loyalty to England and the countryside around Flatford cannot be overstated. Not once in his life did he leave his homeland, not even for an exhibition at Lille, at which the White Horse won a gold medal. French artists' admiration of his work would contribute to the influential Barbizon School's style of landscape painting, seen in Corot's Lake, also on view on the same floor, as well as French Romanticism at large. While Constable's paintings were at times shown in France, the artist himself would have to be admired at a distance. The White Horse was one of Constable's favorite paintings. In 1819, it gained him admission to the Royal Academy of Arts in London at age 42, after 20 years of efforts to join the storied institution. As a result, this piece is largely regarded by scholars as the most important work he ever painted. It prompted favorable comparisons with earlier landscape artists like major 17th century Dutch painter Jacob van Ruysdael. Constable once wrote to John Fisher that, quote, "There are generally, in the life of an artist, perhaps 1, 2, or 3 pictures on which hang more than the usual interest. This is mine," end quote. When Fisher later ran into financial troubles, Constable bought back the White Horse at its original purchase price of 100 guineas and kept it until his death. The painting brought him great serenity in his later years. I hope you'll come spend some time with this painting, exploring the murky depths and the whimsically realistic clouds of Constable's nostalgic scene on the River Stour, the White Horse. Thank you for joining us for a closer look.